I'm stepping away from Serpo is because we need to focus on the future. A lot of people have been crying foul, saying that this story is disinformation. And of course it's disinformation. Isn't it worthwhile taking a look to see what might be true? We have been visited, that contact has been established, that we have been genetically manipulated by extraterrestrial species for reasons unknown. I need to prioritize. And so I want 100% of my attention to be on Camelot, and that's what it's going to be from now.
How are you today, Bill Ryan?
I'm just fine. This is the Thursday of the Loughton Conference 2007. And we figured it might be quite an interesting idea to come back after our first interview.
So, what is your thought about your year with Serpo and how it all went?
Wow, that's a simple closed question, isn't it? When you first asked me those simple, penetrating questions about Serpo so long ago, I never really dreamt that it would run and run and run over. There would be no effective closure on the issue. What has happened since then is there's been a sort of stuttering continuity of releases which have satisfied nobody. They haven't really satisfied the debunkers because they haven't been able to put it to bed. They haven't satisfied the believers because they haven't been able to come up with any proof. The claimed photographs never appeared, although we got some fake ones towards the end of last year. And a continuous intrigue of involvement with the intelligence services has continued to kind of smolder on like a fire that won't go out, showing that indeed there is some kind of fire behind the smoke, but nobody really knows what that is. Is this a fire that's been lit within the, what I think our anonymous source called the halls of the DIA, although the DIA doesn't actually have any halls, it's a nice image, or whether this has actually got something to do with an exchange program that really happened.
Well, the reality is that Serpo could be any planet that theoretically is inhabitable, not named Serpo necessarily, isn't that right? And that this could be any exchange program, and that there could have been a number of them, judging from what Gary McKinnon uncovered.
We don't know anything, actually. And the only thing that's really been achieved in the last 12 months is that the concept of an exchange program is now rooted healthily and irrevocably in the vocabulary of the ufology community. And of course the believers here will cheer and the naysayers will despair. But as I've said right from the start, that given the premises that visitation has occurred and that communication has been established, it would be extraordinary if they hadn't invited us back to their place for a little while. And it seems almost inevitable that that would have happened. It would have been extraordinary if it hadn't happened. And so this is a little bit like those medieval debates that the monks used to have in the cloisters about how many angels will dance on a pin. It doesn't really matter. And it's of sort of academic interest only. Now, of course, the ufology historians will now cry foul and say that actually it's really important to get a timeline of events and critical circumstances, everything that's occurred since 1947 or before. But this happened, if it did happen, it happened nearly 50 years ago. It's a very long time ago.
Well, actually, you and I visited the house of what appears to be someone at least associated with the Serpo story, isn't that right?
Well, that's right. We visited someone's house. Very, very interesting.
We delivered a letter to his wife, the man's wife.
We delivered a letter. The
man was standing in the doorway.
The man was standing in the doorway. The wife was standing at the gate. They were waiting for us, even though we hadn't told anyone we were coming. It's all really
So they
wonderful.
had surveillance on the street.
Or they had surveillance in our vehicle.
Right.
And yeah, we delivered this lovely, courteous, very polite little letter that we worked on for hours and hours and hours, basically saying, here we are, we're passing through, our cell phone is in our pockets, we're going to go and retire to a coffee shop for a few hours. If we did happen to receive a call from you, we would be delighted to answer it. And thank you very much for your time, and this is not intended to be a personal intrusion. And so we retired, the phone did not ring, off we went back to LA, and apparently this and our previous contact, which was when we had written to them by FedEx so that we could record the delivery and the receipt. This was way back in the end of April last year, April 21st last year. And personally, I even wondered whether we got the right person. And then it was only when we had been contacted several months later by a senior member of the intelligence community, who should better remain nameless, who said words to the effect of, I hear you went to the old man's house to try and record an interview, or I hear you got in touch with the old man, how did you find out his address? And it's just like, what an incredible blunder that was, because it's like, thank you very much, now we know he's an old man, now we know he's for real, now we know that this has gone all the way up the channels of the DIA, across to the CIA, and then down to our contact, who felt that they'd better find out what was going on, and all it did was confirm it. Does this mean that he's an astronaut? Nope. Does it mean that Serpo exists? No, it doesn't, but it means that, as I've always maintained, this isn't a simple hoax invented by some kid in a basement. This isn't...
Or by Rick Doty, isn't it right?
Or by Rick Doty, or by Bob Collins trying to promote his book. I mean, none of these theories hold any water whatsoever. There's a huge complexity behind the dark curtain, which we haven't been able to find out all about. Nobody else has been able to find out all about. And the truth is, we don't know. And one of the things I want to say here to anyone who cares to listen, my focus is very much now on the future. And I know this sounds a little bit like a politician who says that he wants to spend more time with his wife and children, but actually it's got nothing to do with this whatsoever. Serpo is one of those fascinating trees in the ufological woods that everyone wants to climb and explore, and they're fascinated by it. And there are a lot of these trees in the woods. I'm thinking of a kind of Lord of the Rings type, you know, deep dark forest where people can get lost really easily, and people can get ensnared in the roots and tangled up in the vines and lost in the branches and stuff. An awful lot of it is historical, and there's so many unanswered questions that you can get kind of caught up in these questions for ever and a day and never come out of that hole, if you like. People go into this hole and they never come out again. And a lot of people have gone into Serpo, and as best I know, they've never come out. They've almost made it their life's work to try and find out what's going on, or they've made it their life's work to try and trash other people who are trying to find out what's going on. And it's just like, well, what's the point, you know? The point is that people are trying to prove whether they're right or not. And this is one of the aspects of the fundamental human condition. People being unwilling to admit that they're wrong, people being unwilling to admit that they don't know, people being unwilling to admit, you know, that actually, that maybe what they've got their attention focused on isn't really as important as they would like to believe. And it's become a huge amount of ego for a significant number of people. And a lot of aspects of ufology are like that. People get into debates about, well, you know, how many aliens were there in the Roswell crash? Where did the Roswell crash happen? You know, did the Aztec crash really happen or not? Are the MJ12 documents real? And so on and so on. Probably with continuing drip feeds of information from the powers that be. And it is the powers that be who are releasing this information, or aspects of the powers that be who are releasing this information about Serpo. This debate could rage on forever and a day, and so it's time, I think, to put it to a close. And so I'm going to step out of this now. Anyone else can continue to debate it until the cows come home, and it takes a long time for the cows to come home, so people can debate this forever. This is my point.
So what you're saying is that you've spent enough time as the webmaster for Serpo, which in essence is what you were and are.
I achieved my own goal with this a very long time ago. And my own goal with this was exactly what you asked me 12 months ago to the day. And the question you asked me was, am I an advocate of the story? And my answer to that, as best I recall, was that no, I'm not an advocate of the story. I never have been. I'm an advocate of people being willing to suspend their disbelief to consider whether or not the story may have merit. And a lot of people have been crying foul, saying that this story is disinformation. And of course it's disinformation. I said that months and months and months ago. And what disinformation means is it means that some of it is true and some of it is false. Just suppose there is truth in this story. Isn't it worthwhile taking a look to see what might be true? And all that's happened really is it's confirmed what Linda Howe and John Lear and Bill Hamilton have been saying for a very long time from completely independent sources. Their story, I think, was that in 1964, 3 bird kernels were taken on board a craft for an unspecified length of time, and when they returned, one of them returned intact, healthy, and sane. Another one went insane, and the third one died. And all 3 sources report exactly the same information, and that rings true for me. And all that Serpo has done is it's kind of confirmed and put a spotlight on the fact that this, that there's something to that story. What's important for me now, personally, and the reason why I'm stepping away from Serpo, is because we need to focus on the future. Serpo does not inform the future. So many of these stories in ufology, they don't inform the future. There's angels on a pin, how many crash disks have there been, was the alien autopsy real or not, are the MJ12 documents real or not? These things don't really matter. I don't want to knock any of these things, because these are good people who are trying to tell the truth, and they're utilizing their expertise as best as they can to dig into a genuine mystery. But once, to use the trees analogy, if you step back just a little way, you see the shape of the woods. You see the shape of the woods. The individual trees don't matter so much. The shape of the woods says clearly that we have been visited, that contact has been established, that we have been genetically manipulated by extraterrestrial species for reasons unknown, that the government has acquired advanced technology, sometimes by fair exchange or by gift, and sometimes by having come across it in the desert, and they acquisitioned it when nobody was looking. What happened in the 1960s and the 1970s doesn't matter to me, because I'm not there anymore. I'm here. This is 2007. What I'm really concerned about is what's going to happen next year and the year after, and in the years running up to this highly charged year 2012, which everyone goes crazy about, or beyond. And the real questions behind that are, why are the visitors here in the first place? Why did they make an appearance en masse after the Second World War, even if they have been visiting us for millennia? Why so much, and why now? And of course, people have been looking at that question. People have been making guesses. People have been saying, well, this is something to do with the environment. People have been saying, well, this is something to do with nuclear testing. Looking back over the last year, looking how the Serpo story has not delivered on its promises to provide proof of an exchange program, that's focused the mind to the degree that it becomes clear that proof of an exchange program is a tantalizing pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I want to focus my attention on what 95% of my attention already is on, which is Camelot, Project Camelot, which is the opportunity to play an educational role presenting to the public stories either that have been overlooked or which are new or which need more attention, that can inform how we can face the future, that give us an idea what the future may present, that can inspire us and which can guide us and which can warn us if warnings are needed. I can't think of anything more valuable to do with what time I have at my disposal, and so I need to prioritize, and so I want 100% of my attention to be on Camelot, and that's what it's going to be from now. Where will we be in 12 months' time, I wonder? That's the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bill Ryan. Thank you for your service to humanity and
Oh, stop it.
putting up the Serpo website.